Let's jump back to R3, and I quit the telnet, and now I'm trying to do a ping using my source of 333, and I try to ping to 111. As you can see that I have no problem here because I'm not doing a telnet, but I'm just doing a ping. And when I do a trace, as you can see that it passed through router 2. Okay, that's my router 2. Now I'm going to do a filtering in router 2. This time I'm going to configure another ACL, and I'm going to configure the advanced ACL. Okay, so let's look into how we can configure the advanced ACL now. So ACL, advanced ACL will be start from 3000. Okay, so I also have a option to use a name, and I'm going to use the name called filter. Okay, and I'm going to use an advanced. Right, so I'm going to use the, remember that my mesh order is a default now, so it's using a config order, not an auto order. So I'm going to say that rules, I would like to only permit, okay, with the source permit IP. I'm going to use a source if you are coming from 3, okay, and you are going to go to your destination of 1, you will get permitted. Okay, and anything else will be not matched. Alright, as you can see that I only use a permit statement and I do not have any deny statement. Okay, so this is in router 2, display ACL all. I have a permit statement, and that statement name is called filter. So here I'm going to create a MQC, or modular QoS CLI. Alright, another way for you to do to use an ACL. So first I'm going to do a traffic classifier. Okay, I'm just call it as filter. Alright, I'm going to match ACL, and that ACL name is called filter. Okay, alright, so I do a display traffic classifier user define. As you can see that I have a classifier called filter, which this refer into ACL, and that ACL name is called filter. Alright, remember I'm filtering the source of 3.3.3 going to the destination of 1.1.1, which is in router 1. Right, next I'm going to configure a traffic behavior. I'm also call it as filter. Okay, and I'm going to say that it is permit. Okay, the action is permit, and I'm going to have a statistic enable. Alright, so that will be my behavior. And lastly, I'm going to configure a policy. Alright, and my classifier is called filter, and the behavior is called filter. And I'm going to apply this policy. So let me show you the behavior. Alright, so you can see that the behavior here is that it is enable, and since this is permit, so they never have any statement permit there unless there is a deny. And I do a display traffic policy user define. So you can see that I have a classifier called filter, which is matching the ACL, and once I match the ACL, I have a statistic. Remember, when I do a display ACL all, I only have a permit statement. So what will happen if it's not matched? Now most of you will think that if it's not matched here, it will get a deny. Alright, just like how we did on the Telnet ACL. Okay, so no worry, so this is just an ACL to do the matching. Remember that we have to implement the ACL, and for us to implement the ACL, we have to go to the interface. So which interface that we want to go in? Let's say for example, I would like to implement in the interface of a gig 0/0/1 R2 gig 001. Okay, I'm going to do a traffic policy filter. I'm going to do inbound or outbound. Of course, it's inbound. Okay, so I do a traffic policy filter inbound. Right, so now I do a display traffic policy. I would like to do a statistic. Look for the interface of a gig001 for inbound. Now this is before I do any ICMP ping. As you can see, that is all 0. So now is our testing time. So I go to R3 and I'm going to do a ping from a source of 3 going to a source of 1. So it should get permitted. There you go. If I'm going to do a ping with a source of 3.3.2.3 1.1.1, what do you think? Would it be permitted or denied? The answer is permitted. Okay, now this is where things get a bit confused. Alright, because if you go back into my R2 and when I do a display statistic, you can see that it's being matched. And those that are not being matched, it's also get permitted. You can see that when I do a ping, I actually ping twice. One is using 3333, another one is using 3323. So those that is being matched is actually matched based on the policy, but those that is not being matched is outside the policy. And since there is outside the policy, it will get permitted. Alright, so that's the reason. Alright, so for you to make sure that you only want to have 3.3 to pass through and none other than 3.3 of the source can pass through, you have to modify your ACL. So if I do a display ACL all, as you can see that I have the permit statement. Alright, so there we have it. So under these circumstances, if we are going to implement the traffic policy, we have to configure a deny rules, and that deny rules is actually have to specify here. So I'm going to go into the ACL name filter. Okay, I'm going to say that rules deny IP source any destination any. So let me show you the display all. As you can see that now when I do a display ACL or display this here, the rules 10 is here, deny IP. And this time when I'm going to go back using 3323, you can see that it's being denied. Right, so 1 time, 2 time, 3, 4 and 5. And when I go back to R2 display ACL all, as you can see that I have 5 matches over here. Okay, so this is where the catcher, you have to remember that when you apply the ACL in the telnet, you do not need to apply the deny statement, but when you apply it in the service type such as the traffic policy, then by default anything that is not matched will get permitted unless you specify a deny statement. So please remember this. Okay.